Welcome to the San Francisco Public Library Commission meeting for March 21st, 2024. The time is 4:30. I'm Margot Schaub, and I serve as the Library Commission Affairs Analyst. This meeting is being held in person in the main library Crett Auditorium, and members of the public can observe the meeting using the Zoom system by following the link in the library's event calendar or by calling 1-877-853-5247 and entering the Zoom webinar ID 831-6887-9816. Members of the public who are attending the meeting in person may provide public comment for up to 3 minutes for each item on the agenda. If we experience any technical issues with Zoom, we will recess, try to address the issue. Please try logging back into Zoom if there are technical problems. Library commissioners in attendance are President Connie Wolf, Vice President Pete Wong, Commissioners Ono, Mall, and Bolander.
Thank you very much. Welcome to the March 21st, 2024 meeting of the San Francisco Public Library Commission. It feels like it's been a really long time since we've been up here, since the February meeting was the first Thursday and not the third Thursday, so it's great to see everybody. Happy spring. To those of us here in Crett Auditorium, we're delighted to have you here, and we are very pleased to welcome our virtual audience via the Zoom platform. We do have a full and very important and exciting meeting ahead, and we will start with the Ramaytush Ohlone land acknowledgement. The area now known as San Francisco is the unceded ancestral homeland of the Ramaytush Ohlone peoples of the San Francisco Peninsula. As the original peoples of this land, the Ramaytush Ohlone have never ceded, lost, nor forgotten their responsibilities as the caretakers of this place. We recognize that we benefit from living, working, and learning on their traditional homeland. As uninvited guests, we affirm their sovereign rights as First Peoples and wish to pay our respects to the ancestors, elders, and relatives of the Ramaytush community. If you have not already done so, all the materials for this meeting are available on the Library Commission webpage or here in the back of the Crett Auditorium. Today we have a total of 6 agenda items, and as always, we will begin with general public comment. At this time, members of the public attending here in Crett may address the Commission on any items of interest to the public that are within the subject matter jurisdiction of the Commission. The public, you all have the opportunity to address the Commission on today's agenda item when that item is called. So if there's an issue you want to just say generally, now is your time, as you will not have that opportunity later on in the meeting. So, general public comment is now open here in Crett. Thank you.
Hello. My name is Carrie Blanding. I'm the Interim Executive Director at the Friends of the San Francisco Public Library. Before I begin my comments, I just want to say that our hearts go out to those who were affected by the tragic accident outside the West Portal Branch Library. They've been in our thoughts, and also we're really appreciative of the library staff. We know that their jobs entail so much more than books. So we're grateful to you all, and we're thinking of you all. Moving on to my comments, I want to just share a few quick updates about Friends of the San Francisco Public Library. We have recently welcomed 3 new board members to our board, David Blazevich, Barry Fong, and Miriam Roble. Miriam is with us tonight and will make a public comment and introduce herself in a few minutes. These new board members all share Friends' values and our commitment to the San Francisco Public Library, and we're proud to add them to our team. We also have a new interim director of development, Wanda Scott. She is an experienced professional who is really outstanding at what she does, and we are thrilled to have her on the team. Our executive search, we don't have any announcements to make just yet, but just letting you know it's all proceeding on track, and we'll share announcements about that when the time is right. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Peter Warfield, Executive Director, Library Users Association, Library Users 2004 at yahoo.com, and P.O. Box 170544, San Francisco, California 94117-0544. Couple of points. The Haight-Ashbury Neighborhood Council had for more than 20 years been meeting monthly on the second Thursday of the month at the Park Branch Library, which has its own entrance separately to the basement community room. During COVID, that ended, and after COVID, the library decided that it either was changing the rules, it's not clear, or not enforcing an existing rule. Either way, they were not allowed to meet any longer on Thursday evenings because the library closes at 6, and the rule imposed was you have to have meetings only while the library is open. Another factor was that the library there closed after COVID, like every other library that had been open till 9, closed at 8. And that's despite the fact that the library's every 5-year surveys have always shown people wanting to have more evenings and weekends for open hours. And we've talked about the problems for community groups who might want to have meetings till 9 o'clock or close to it because they have working people, students, and others who are busy during the day. And that the earlier closure, which has never been discussed here or certainly not approved, was simply invoked and imposed following COVID. The group was pretty patient about trying to work it out. It didn't work out. Ultimately, the intervention of Supervisor Dean Preston resulted in the city librarian allowing the group to meet. So they did last week. Every group should be able to meet. Every library that was open should be at least open that late. The toxicity of social media, in particular Facebook, has been discussed by the Surgeon General, by Francis Haugen in front of the Senate 2.5 years ago, and I've been talking about that revelation and the coverage it got in the New York Times and Wall Street Journal pretty much every time I've spoken here, and you haven't mentioned it specifically. The issue I have is not just with the toxicity, but the library's free advertising over and over again in its publicity, and it's at the Library Monthly newsletter. Every one of those 2 boxes in the 8 pages, get social, and then the listing of all of the social media. That's wrong, at least without warning to the public. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Miriam Roble, and I am one of the 3 new board members at Friends of the Library. Really thrilled to be here with you all and looking forward to continuing to support the library in this role. I am a sustainability consultant. I lead a team globally of about 250 people who work with corporates on their sustainability programs. And I'm a San Francisco native, so I grew up with this library. I grew up in the Haight, and I'm now raising a daughter who also loves the library and is a power user. So really happy to be here. Wanted to let you know that at our meeting this week, the Friends Board of Directors passed our annual gift to the library, which will later be brought to the Budget Committee of the Board of Supervisors for final approval. In addition to Friends advocacy efforts that help secure long-term public funding through the Library Preservation Fund, Friends makes an annual gift towards programs and resources that will make the exceptional difference to library users throughout the city. Next year, these annual funds will be proposed at a level of $1,080,375. We're proud to be the library's partner since 1961 and hope to be partners for many years to come. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. I congratulate you on your excellent service to the people who live here and use the library, such as myself. I am very concerned about the change in your mission statement. I believe you should not remove the following sentence. The San Francisco Public Library system is dedicated to free and equal access to information, knowledge, independent learning, and the joys of reading for our diverse community. I believe that should stay in your mission statement. To be perfectly honest, I don't understand what legal ramifications would ensue if you remove that statement from your mission statement. Not only that, I appreciate the fact that we have a public forum here to talk about everything that goes on in the library, but it's never been very clear to me what legal function you perform. So that my understanding, and it might not be correct, is that you serve pretty much at the discretion of the library director, who does a very good job in general. But I do think that removing this statement from the mission statement would do tremendous harm to the numerous groups that depend on the library here for access, for information, for even a degree of socializing. And I urge you to leave it in and not risk any possible way of inspiring a legal action that might ask you to put it back in. This library serves the broadest possible population in San Francisco, more than any other public institution, in my opinion, and we need to keep doing that. Good luck.
Any other public comment here in Koret Auditorium? Seeing that there's no further public comment, the public comment is now closed. I just want to thank Carrie for reminding us of the extraordinary efforts of the West Portal team during that very tragic accident. And Miriam, welcome to the Friends of the San Francisco Public Library. And thank you so much for announcing the gift. That was really wonderful to hear and a great start to today's meeting, so thank you. We now turn to item number 2, which is discussion and possible action to approve the February Commission meeting minutes. We will open up for public comment before a Commission discussion on this item. Public comment is open now here in Koret.
Peter Warfield, Executive Director, Library Users Association, Library Users 2004 at yahoo.com, and P.O. Box 170544, San Francisco, California 94117-0544. The minutes, mostly as usual, except in one place, which is improved, tend to downplay or cover over and make incomprehensible some of the comments that I have made, particularly those that are critical in certain directions. The address that you have provided in the comment that I made on item 1 leaves out the suffix for the zip code. And it seems that you might have often enough heard and written the address that I always give as to how to reach us, because we are very happy to communicate with people who are interested in things that we're interested in, namely the library. So I'd like that correction. I've also, every time for 2.5 years, mentioned the toxicity of social media. That's not just my opinion. The Surgeon General has said that. He's talked about the dangers to kids and especially teenagers, and Frances Haugen's testimony about this at the Senate. And it's not just abstract issues with the safety, it's that you are touting this in your publicity for no particular reason, including the monthly publication at the library where you have Get Social and so on. And I've said that every time. It's not in here once again. With respect to item 2, I've said again, I've talked about the problems with the minutes. And the issue there is, again, I'm not talking about just social media. I'm talking about the library's role in basically recruiting for it by saying Get Social and putting it on all kinds of publicity. with respect to the budget, I was talking about the greater availability of ebooks and much longer waits very often for print books. That was the point. Longer wait listing for print books than e-materials, than actual materials, CDs, DVDs, and so on. And that should be in there too, but isn't. I'd like to see that in there. And thank you very much. At the adjournment, you've gotten it better than before. And I was concerned on public comment for the librarian's report about the least access to computer-only programs that the vulnerable populations have. Much of those programs nowadays are computer-only, and that's a problem.
Thank you. Any further public comment on this item number 2, which is the February Commission meeting minutes? Seeing there's no further public comment is now closed. And we now move to the Commission discussion and action on item number 2. Would someone like to make a motion to approve the minutes of the February Commission meeting? I move. Do we have a second to approve?
I'll second.
So we have a motion from Commissioner Mall and a second from Commissioner Bolander to approve the February Commission meeting minutes.
And I'll take the roll call. Commissioners, please say aye or no when I call your name. President Wolf.
Aye.
Vice President Wong.
Aye.
Commissioner Ono.
Aye.
Commissioner Mall.
Aye.
Commissioner Lopez.
Aye.
Commissioner Bolander.
Aye.
The motion passes unanimously. And now we turn to item number 3. I feel like we need like a drum roll or some kind of like big moment. This is a big moment in our history and culminating in so many months and so many hours of dedication from the staff and the community to help us get to this point. So this is a discussion and possible action on the strategic planning and amended bylaws. So I turn the meeting over to our city librarian, Michael Lambert.
Thank you, President Wolf, and good evening, library commissioners, library staff. Appreciate this opportunity to once again present on our strategic planning process. And after the presentation in January, this may seem a little anticlimactic, but it does truly mark the culmination of 15 months of hard work to deeply engage our community and every segment of our workforce to co-create a new vision, a mission, and strategic framework for the San Francisco Public Library. The Vision 2030 plan will serve as our North Star as we seek to achieve a more democratic, equitable, and vibrant San Francisco in prioritizing the needs of our community. This strategic plan represents a distillation of the very best thinking of our staff, incorporating feedback from every segment of our workforce, including our staff ambassadors and the executive leadership team. I also want to acknowledge the critically important contributions of all of you and the feedback of the Library Commission, in particular Vice President Wong, who served on the steering committee throughout. The Library Commission's input during this process has made the end product you're discussing today a much better plan. You'll find that your most recent feedback from the January meeting has been incorporated into this final draft, and our consultant team is here today, headed up by Midori Mizuhara, Senior Associate from Gensler. She'll be taking you through the presentation. But before I turn it over to Midori, I do want to highlight that included in your packets, you have a draft copy of our amended bylaws. And at the conclusion of the presentation, library staff appreciate your consideration of the recommendation to amend the library's bylaws with the revised mission statement. Without further ado, Midori, take it away.
So much for having us today. Hi, everybody. My name is my name is Midori Mizuhara. I'm a project manager at Gensler, the design and strategy firm that's been leading this effort for 15 months, as Michael has said. I'm joined by my colleague Ellie Holmes, who will come up and join me if there's any Q&A at the end. In preparation for this meeting, we had issued the full strategic plan and the appendix for your reference. So today we're really here to present the core components of Vision 2030, a 6-year strategic plan for the SFPL. After reviewing today, we'll be asking the commissioners to vote and amend the bylaws and incorporate SFPL's updated mission statement in alignment with the strategic plan. As Michael mentioned, we've been coming to you for the last 15 months and done work over 4 phases of work. We've seen this timeline before. We launched in early 2023. We spent the bulk of our time and resources on discovery, which included an immense amount of outreach to library leadership, library staff, the community throughout the city, and our partners. We then went into sense-making in fall 2023, which meant really co-creating a framework with you all and staff. And then in the last few months, we've really been in the finalizing phase and putting pen to paper and finalizing the plan with you all and creating the final document. The steering committee, the management team, staff ambassadors, and you all commissioners have been our alignment and guideposts throughout these last 15 months, and we've met with you along the way, those little black dots all along the bottom of the page, many times to align the plan and kind of tweak and refine everything. So let's get into it. The vision, mission, and values. All of your happy faces there.
Yeah, really.
So many smiles. At the core of this plan is the mission, vision, and values. If you remember one page from this entire document, make it be this one. These are the most important components of the plan and what everyone should return to when making decisions about new programs, initiatives, how we're doing on work performance, and how we're spending resources. Thank you to the commissioners again for your close collaboration. We did a lot of tweaking of this language together and refinement, and I think the way it ended up is better than ever, and the product really shows all of those refinements along the way. Diving into the vision, a democratic, equitable, and vibrant San Francisco for everyone is SFPL's vision for the city's future. Democratic speaks to striving for a city governed by the people and for the people. Equitable speaks to our hope we're a city where all can have access and opportunity. Vibrant really captures that energy and vitality and diversity that we enjoy in San Francisco. And for everyone captures this idea that the library is truly a place for everyone, one of the last, public realm destinations where every single person is welcome. Moving along to the mission, this is really how the library brings the vision to life, right? So SFPL's new mission statement is connect our diverse communities to learning, opportunities, and each other. Connect really captures that active role the library is playing to enhance people's lives. Diverse communities recognizes that there are a spectrum of different needs across the city. Learning opportunities and each other, identify outcomes that we strive for, an overarching goal of enriching lives. Lastly, in this section, we have the new values, which really guide SFPL's behaviors and beliefs within the organization and towards the communities served. So we prioritize well-being by creating a safe, respectful, and supportive environment. We advance equity by providing access to free, high-quality resources. We strengthen our communities when we come together and engage and inspire and learn from one another. Collaboration, we embrace diverse perspectives through thoughtful collaboration. And finally, exploration, when we harness the power of our learning, discovery, and wherever our imaginations and curiosities may lead. So that concludes the mission, vision, values. And now I'm going to jump into the bulk of what makes up the body of the plan, which are the strategic priorities. And I'm going to do a bit of a deep dive into the first one. There are 5 strategic priorities. Overall, these have not changed since the last time you saw them, but I'm going to go deep into one to kind of unpack the structure. So Literacy Champion is up first. Literacy Champion, this strives to cultivate the critical understandings necessary for meaningful participation in society through immersive and varied learning experiences. And what you'll find in the plan is at the beginning of every strategic priority chapter, there are community voices that we heard directly from folks in all of the community outreach we did that really set up the strategy and inspired the ideas here. And each strategic priority has 3 to 4 actual strategies that we've identified to deliver the community benefits. Diving into each strategy, if you double click into strategy 1 and all of the strategies, you'll find current offerings which depict where we are doing this already. and where to expand, community needs that this strategy is responding to, and intended outcomes, which start to hint at how to measure how we're doing. So I'll just go deep into strategy 1, which is all about expanding the impact and scope of our current core literacy programs to support reading and writing and skill development for all ages. And if you look into the current offerings, this highlights many things that this library is already doing wonderfully, such as Storytime, Project Read. And if you look at the community needs under this one, what we heard directly from focus groups as an example is high quality educational opportunities, literacy aid, especially for English language education and non-native English speakers. Some of the desired outcomes here in Literacy Champion are all kindergartners are ready to read, all students are at reading grade level at grade 3, and improved basic literacy skills for adults. Some of the other strategies in this Literacy Champion speak to bridging educational gaps, minimizing learning loss for school children, expanding and optimizing content types to support 21st century literacies, and supporting the development and skills and behaviors needed to participate in civic life. So at the end of every strategic priority, you'll find a few 2 to 3 featured initiatives in the plan. And these really speak to either future projects that the library is planning to launch or current projects that are going to be intentionally expanded. The 3 little dots that you see under each initiative speaks to what phase 1, 2, or 3 over the span of 6 years that this program or initiative will launch. So for example, in Literacy Champion, the first initiative is Enhanced School Literacy Readiness, which speaks to a partnership with the school district and early childhood development to ensure that San Francisco children are meeting literacy milestones. The second, Connected Learning Hubs, which you see an illustration to the right of, is consisting of programming at all locations for school-aged children during out-of-school times to really integrate their personal interests with academic support, all in an enriching emotional and social well-being throughout. For example, both of these are set for phase 2. So that concludes the kind of deep dive into one of them. The next 4, I'm going to go more high level and just spend a page or 2. So the next is Cultural Amplifier, and this is all about facilitating cultural experiences that celebrate, center, and deepen the understanding of our diverse communities in San Francisco. We'll fulfill this by a few strategies, developing offerings that facilitate cultural exchange, connecting people to arts and culture throughout the city, enabling creators with the tools and materials to explore their passions, and really importantly, providing creative professionals with paid opportunities to expand their audiences and feature their work. So some of the featured initiatives for Cultural Amplifier include things like enhanced affinity center efforts. So this one is really focused on a dedicated Latinx affinity center at Maine and expanding partnerships with local Native and Indigenous-centered organizations. The second initiative will expand partnerships with local artists and nonprofits to support expanded cultural exhibitions. These are both slated for phase 2. Lastly, we have a community storytelling and local history initiative depicted by the illustration on the right. And this is a really great opportunity for community members to share and record their own lived experience and stories of their families, and really focus and celebrate local history in San Francisco. And this is a phase 3 initiative. Moving along to Community Catalyzer, our third strategic priority. This is where SFPL will foster experiences within the library that strengthen social connections. And I think more than ever, this was one that we heard such direct feedback from the focus groups, overwhelming need for the library and desire for the library to help combat social isolation, which is a huge problem in our cities and across our communities right now. Strategies in this one focus on creating experiences that bridge generations, providing off-site services to reach high urgency populations, and really fostering experiences that facilitate expertise sharing and relationship building. The 2 featured initiatives here, the first one is set for phase 1, and it's enhanced intergenerational programming. So this one really focuses on more programs at branches and off-site community spaces to foster greater understanding and lifelong learning and collaboration between younger audiences and seniors. The second initiative here focuses on outdoor space activation, specifically including Fulton Street Plaza and outside Main Library and community displays and events to enhance the quality of life and neighborhood connections. This is a Phase 3 project. Moving along to our fourth strategic priority here, Thoughtful Navigator. This is really focused on serving as a caring and knowledgeable gateway, helping people find not only library resources, but city resources. Strategies here focus on taking a personal and thoughtful approach and guiding various populations to the right services. These could be populations such as immigrants, new parents, newcomers to the city. Two featured initiatives here to note for Thoughtful Navigator: a Gateway to SF Pathways Citizenship Initiative. This is where SFPL will partner with the Office of Civic Engagement and Immigrant Affairs to provide services and programs for immigrants, refugees in a safe and welcoming environment. The second program here, which is already in progress, is the Promotora Outreach Program, in which excuse me. This will deepen relationships with local neighborhood organizations and recruit community-based ambassadors to further engage populations such as Latinx, Black African American, Arabic speakers, and more. And our last strategic priority I'll cover is resource provider, and this is where SFPL will deliver the experience and guidance that supports the basic needs, encourage personal growth, and enrich life in San Francisco. The strategies here include things like providing community members with those core library services, including books, media, equipment, and spaces that align with interests to promote personal growth, inspiring skill building and passion development through unique collections, and really championing digital equity through emerging technologies. And our last two featured initiatives here for resource provider include expanded workforce development opportunities, and this is focused on additional resources and materials to. The activities would take place in this one would be serving as a professional springboard almost for careers in the library for young adults and recent graduates. Our second Read to Recovery initiative, which is newly launched, it provides additional resources and materials supporting addiction recovery, harm reduction, and prevention for substance abuse. And that concludes the part of the plan that takes up the bulk of the plan, the strategic priorities. I'm going to shift now to the organizational shifts. So these are the final component that you'll find in the plan. And I won't go through these in detail because most of them have not changed. Organizational shifts, as a reminder, will really direct how the library internally realizes its vision, mission, values, and strategic priorities. So we have prioritize the community, adopt a growth mindset, embrace collaboration, proactively connect, infuse the spirit of San Francisco, and promote well-being and safety. And I will just note that we did evolve one of them and infuse the spirit of SF. This one is all about infusing the spirit of the city into the design and delivery of the library experience, and focuses on opportunities such as articulating and refining characteristics that really define that special, unique SFPL experience, sparking curiosity, employing play and joy, continuing to support local creatives through offerings, and better utilizing all the diverse interests and skills of our staffs. Our staff is our community as well, in order to better reflect the unique character of our city. And so when we think about all the components that I just walked through and putting that together all on one page, we see again the vision, mission, and value really as the heart, remaining the heart of this plan, the core of the plan. At the top there, you see the 5 strategic priorities, which again are more externally focused and focus on how SFPL will embody and serve the community. At the bottom there, the organizational shifts at the base, which describes the service model shifts and how to achieve everything above. And so that was a lot. How do we think about the next 6 years? How do we get some of this done? How do we chart a path for success? So then the ending of the plan, the last chapter of the plan is called Looking Forward. And this sets up a high-level implementation roadmap split into 3 phases. Phase 1 is characterized by organizational impact. And this really speaks to developing a culture where staff is living and breathing the SFPL values and developing capabilities needed to realize the plan. The externally facing strategic priorities that I listed, that talked about a few minutes ago, are listed at the top. And then organizational shifts and approaches to start to get this done fall under different components, such as, staff culture, skills and talents, partnerships, spaces. How are we thinking about our physical spaces, our offerings, our communications and marketing, and operations? So some things to note here. In phase 1, things will be done like socializing and integrating the plan into all aspects of the organization and reducing organizational silos, enabling cross-functional collaboration among teams. As we shift to phase 2, we're expanding to a broader community impact, which means the goal is transforming SFPL into the library that's genuinely community-centered in how it works and delivers every day. In alignment with the focus on the community, most of the featured initiatives fall into this phase. Internally, the organizational shifts will be doing things like continuing to utilize partnerships, external creators to offer more unique offerings, developing processes around new service lines, and expanding the community's perception of what the library is through awareness campaigns. And then phase 3 is really where we scale. So this is about comprehensive impact across the city and beyond. At the conclusion of phase 3, SFPL will have fully realized the elements of the strategic plan and expanded positive comprehensive impact across the city. So this means outwardly facing, we have 2 initiatives, the community storytelling and the outdoor space activation. Internally, when we think about the organizational shifts, we have things like including extended services to spaces outside the library, evolving patron communication norms, and more proactive, high-quality service model. And so before I conclude the presentation here, I just wanted to give a step back and give a big thank you to everybody who played such a critical role in the last 15 months putting this plan together. Obviously, all of you commissioners, the staff, the community, most importantly. I'd really like to thank the staff for your trust and collaboration. This has been a true co-creation and co-authorship process. We learned from your expertise. You trusted us. You asked us tough questions. You put the plan to test, and you really worked with us to refine it. And so we want to just give you our gratitude for that. The thousands of community members who played an active role in the engagement, not only at the Night of Ideas in 2023, but thousands of user intercept surveys, thousands of conversations with John here from CC&G, and focus groups across the city, both geographically and touching every priority population group. So we've learned an immense amount, and the full list of acknowledgements can be found in the plan, and I speak for the whole consultant group to say that we're truly honored to be a part of this process. And with that, I'll conclude with the requested action to the commissioners to amend the bylaws and to incorporate the SFPL updated mission statement in alignment with the library strategic plan. Again, that new mission statement is connect our diverse communities to learning, opportunities, and each other. And I'll conclude there. I'll turn it over. Thank you.
Thank you, Midori.
Thank you very much. Very exciting. Before we open this up for commission discussion and possible action, we open it up for public comment here for the guests here in Corrett Auditorium, and public comment is now open.
Hi again, Miriam Roble. On behalf of Friends of the Library, we want to congratulate the library on the final iteration of the strategic plan. We know how much went into this and how foundational of a project it is, and we want to thank all the members involved for their hard work in crafting the vision for the library. We know that the library sought to include input from many voices in this planning process, and we're thrilled that representatives from Friends were included in that. Thank you. Friends will have its own strategic planning process coming up in the next year or so, and we'll be sure to consider the library's goals and strategies as we look ahead to our work in partnership with the public library. Thank you.
Peter Warfield, Executive Director, Library Users Association, Library Users 2004 at yahoo.com, and P.O. Box 170544, San Francisco, California, 94117-0544. To put two major issues into one agenda item is wrong. You shouldn't do it. Those are two significant things, so significant that a bylaws change by law has to have a different notification time period, extra time for it. So the first thing to be said is there's a huge difference in what the old and the new mission statements say. And let's just introduce this as I think this is a catastrophe for the library as a library. There's hardly any mention of individuals, what's provided to individuals. There's almost no mention of books at all. It's a lot of process and a lot of whatever. Connect our diverse communities to learning opportunities and each other. Is this a dating service? Is this a job provision service? What about the books, magazines, newspapers, all of the printed material and the artwork and so on? It's very, very thin. I'd certainly like to know what has changed since the last appearance here in January. But there's just an extraordinary paucity of anything that has to do with collections. Normally, you would think that you might be interested in discussing what has gone poorly or not so well, and you want to improve it, and what you want to improve. There's no clarity with the mission statement what that's enabling or improving. It's just a brand new mission statement that has pretty much no measurable outcomes. I'm looking for a cultural amplifier. There isn't one mention of books. Where are the art books? Where are the history books? Where is anything to do with the collection? Develop offerings and experiences, on and on. Page cultural amplifier. Nothing with respect to books, all about processes. Develop offerings, enable creators, provide creative professionals with opportunities, connect people to diverse arts and culture. This is a disaster for the library as a library, and it's a withdrawal from the library as a traditional library or any other kind of a library that serves folks who care about the original meaning of the joys of reading, independent learning, knowledge, and information, and so on. Everything in the old should be in the new mission statement. And
I thank Mr. Warfield for his comments. I was unable to obtain a paper copy of the plan. There are none left in the back of the room. Can I get a copy of the paper document? After the meeting? Well, I'd prefer to see it now. I could not share more strongly. I'm a journalist, a writer. I could not share more strongly Mr. Warfield's concern about the absence, a near total absence of the emphasis on reading printed materials such as books, magazines, and whatever else the library circulates of a printed word-based nature. It's very discouraging to hear anyone pretend that there's literacy going on when there isn't an emphasis on reading books and literary and paper material. I also would like to see a budget analysis of this plan. Everything in San Francisco government has budgetary implications. I'm wondering where they are for this plan. I'd like to see that. I suspect there is a way to get it with an arduous public records request that probably none of us would rather undertake, but maybe would be necessary. Thank you for your hard work.
Thank you for the public comments. Any further public comment on this agenda item? Seeing there's no further public comment on this agenda item, public comment's now closed. We now turn to discussion and possible action on this strategic planning documents and presentation and some action on the amended bylaws. So I think we could divide this into two parts, and we can begin with, or if there's any questions or comments from the commissioners, and then we'll move to the vote. But I just want to remind us, this is the culmination of many hours of discussion and presentation. So of course, all questions are welcome, but let's remember that we've had those opportunities as well. And I just want to open it up for discussion, and then we'll go to the vote. So any comment from Susan?
Just to make this brief, where are the measurable outcomes? How are we to judge what's happening and if this is successful?
I can speak to that. I think the implementation phase really begins and gets defined after today. What's included in the plan is a roadmap for 3 phases. And really it's up to SFPL how success is being measured on all of these in the next phase of work. I don't know if, Michael, you want to speak to the plans of, how we're measuring success with each one of these, how those are being quantified, or if...
Sure.
Yep.
Well, the overriding outcome that we currently strive to achieve will remain the same, and that is our resident satisfaction with our services. We have new strategic priorities, we have new signature initiatives. So, for example, we will continue to be a champion for literacy. That is one of our strategic priorities we're carrying forward. If you look at the signature initiative that is underpinning that, we look to partner with the San Francisco Unified School District, the Department of Early Childhood, the Department of Children, Youth, and Families, other nonprofits, community-based organizations for collective impact to make sure all children in San Francisco are entering kindergarten ready to read, ready to learn. That will have hopefully downstream positive outcomes for the campaign for grade level reading, making sure young people are reading at grade level by 3rd grade when they're shifting from learning to read to reading to learn everything else. And, eventually showing demonstrable outcomes for greater educational attainment. So, this is a high-level strategic plan. The management team will now need to take this plan and, do some additional work planning to operationalize this. But that's just one example of how we look to have the types of impact and outcomes as a result of all this planning work.
And is that different than before the strategic plan? The partnerships with the school district and the
It is
Department of
different
Youth and
now.
Family and Children,
It is different in that we have never put it down on paper with intention and with the plan to allocate future resources and staff capacity to affect better outcomes for SFUSD students. So it's not that we haven't partnered with SFUSD in the past, but we have not put a stake in the ground as part of a strategic planning process and said that this is something that we want to take on and try to move the needle on.
If you look at page 37, no, you're so nice that you gave it to someone else. This is how loving you are. It warms my heart. 37, 39 have got outcomes, or at least outcomes for at least strategy 1, strategy 2. And so if you sort of look through it, you can see outcomes of how these will be measured. Now, of course, strategy is different than tactics and implementation. Obviously, we need a guiding star, a North Star for what we want to do. And the reason why I wanted to sort of just comment on that is because there are different levels of how things get implemented. Most people only understand the tactical, it's right in front of me, I don't understand like why this and that. This is a higher level North Star, the vision, the promised land. We're going to get there in 6 years. It's not going to happen all in one time. If it did, then you wouldn't need any of us, and we could all go, yay, great. Well, you'll still need us. Someone's got to sit here and listen to everything, right? But I mean, generally, right, one, I appreciate, I'm sorry, do you want to continue on? I'm sorry.
No,
Oh, okay,
go
I'm
ahead.
sorry.
Go ahead.
I just figured I'd jump in since I
Yeah.
literally do this for a living in my day job. This is way better because I just help companies make more money, which is sort of weird, but anyway. But just to level set all of this, right? It's been 15 months. It's been thoughtful. There's been a lot of back and forth. You know, you can't change a plan you don't have, right? And the last time we did a strategic plan was 1996, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, we did have a strategic plan that ran from 2016 to 2021. However, that plan was entirely developed internally, and this process is really more representative of how you should do a needs assessment with community engagement. And
Right. And the
full
last
employee
time
engagement.
we formally did that was when, if ever?
It was under a prior regime.
Prior
I'll just
regime,
say
right.
that.
I think I remember in the 1990s, right? So it's been 20 plus years of really not adapting and changing to the world as it moves forward. So the nice thing about strategic plans is they're adaptable and bendable, and they tend to show, again, the promised land. Where are we going? How are we going to get there directionally? It's not tactical. If it's tactical, it's not strategic, right? So one, I would just like to applaud the team, all the community members. Pete, great job. Hard to do. And also just how thoughtful this is. And look, no, not everyone's going to agree with this. I get it, right? Like, fine. But the intent is to make the organization better. It is flexible, it's thoughtful, it meets the needs of today and in the future, and it's directionally where we need to go. And are we the only department that does this? How do other departments do this? Just quickly.
Other departments of city government do have strategic plans. You know, the Recreation and Parks Department, I saw they pushed out a survey on social media the other day, so it sounds like they're gearing up to do some community and needs assessment. So we are not unique in this regard. And you're right, the last time the Library Commission revised our bylaws and adopted a new mission statement, it was 1996.
Yeah, okay. So I was, wow, that's great. You told me that.
Well, it was also in conjunction with the opening of this building. It really signaled a new era. So that was how it came to be.
Yeah, and I think back then it was, how are we going to figure out the new information superhighway is what they used to call it for the kids, right, back in the day. That's ubiquitous, foregone conclusion now, right? So now I think it's just, change is hard, but change has to happen. And I applaud everyone's work on this, so thanks.
Well, Jari, coming from you, since this is what you do in your day job, that is a
I would
great.
change the font now.
But I just want to be sure, Susan, you feel like your question was addressed?
Yeah.
Okay. Great. Yeah. Vice President Huang.
I have two questions. So this slide is actually perfect. One, can you share a little bit more? I don't know who's going to answer this question, so I'm going to look both directions. One, can you share a little bit more about what went into like shaping these phases, specifically on the first half, like when we decide on the community offerings basis, just the general level of fidelity to expect on what this list is? Is this on the spectrum of like, this is just a vague idea all the way to this is a commitment? I imagine we're somewhere in the middle. Where exactly are we, and can you just give a little bit more description of that? And then two, I take the lack of a specific timeline to mean that this is sort of like the list, and then there's this exercise that we have to do that has everything to do with like how much time and energy and money we have to sort of make all this happen, to actually come down to a more firm and concrete execution timeline here. I think this might be a question for you, Michael. Can you share a little bit more of just that reconciliation process then, of like, what are the sort of steps that the M team is not going to take to kind of rationalize this into something that ends up being actually what we as an organization do year on year over the next 6 years?
It's an excellent question, and we did accept the challenge from the Library Commission to think about what is the time horizon for this strategic plan. And 2030 was really a perfect endpoint. It takes us through the remainder of this decade, but it also positions us to, think beyond this decade and enter the next decade with a forward-looking evolution of the San Francisco Public Library. And thinking about a phased approach, phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, you could interpret that as nice 2-year increments. However, some of this plan will take longer. We started with phase 1, organizational impact, and this really represents a lot of internal work that needs to happen as far as organizational development, really looking at our workforce, investing in our workforce, updating our job classification specs to reflect not only the work that we're currently doing, but also the work that needs to be done to meet the needs of our community, reflecting how libraries are operating locally, regionally, and across the country. So that work will begin in earnest in the upcoming fiscal year. Some of these initiatives are already in flight. The Read to Recovery Initiative, the Promotora Outreach Program, the literacy initiative for, improving kindergarten readiness. We're saying phase 2. In actuality, we are already beginning that work. I'll be meeting with the mayor's policy advisor on education tomorrow. Thanks to Commissioner Bolander, we've already started conversations with SFUSD. This is our best educated guess at this moment, this point in time, of how we want to phase this work. But again, the management team as a leadership team, we're kind of in wait and see mode because we wanted the Library Commission to certainly give us, your approval for this plan at this meeting. But there is a lot of work that needs to happen now as far as work planning, how we're going to operationalize this, how we're going to align internal committees, how we're going to set up new work groups to take on this work. So in many ways, this is just the beginning of us getting organized. And, we will have a deeper level of planning work that will enable us to set, timelines for activities and better understand how we want to measure success. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. And I think that's clear. There's a lot of, this is so conceptual, right? Like we need to get to a point where it actually crystallizes a little bit. I think for me personally, I would love to, it doesn't have to be, it's not a now discussion. I'm not trying to get a specific answer, but at some point, get just one click more detailed on just the general cycle of this planning. And if this is, again, painting a spectrum here of there is no sort of plan, and sort of we're just going to play, wait and see and just figure out month to month what we're going to do. And then on the other end is we're going to plan 6 years out of the gate, and that is the plan, and all that kind of stuff. Again, we're somewhere in the middle, and that's going to be somewhere like that. But understanding generally what is the cadence. And the reason I ask that is with the budget cycle being annual, we get 6 of these, right? Over the course of this plan. And so I think the time time and sort of understanding of like what happens in between those ends up being much more important. I'm generally guarding against a scenario where 4 years in, like, you know, like if we go too slow, right? Like 4 years in, it's sort of like, okay, well, we've only done like 10% of this stuff, and like the rest of it still required all this sort of other thinking. And I'd rather have us be more on the ball about this. And so just to sort of, maybe this ends up being just like another sort of like a cycle thing in terms of what we end up seeing as a commission on month to month or like quarterly or every 6 month basis, whatever it is. But just sort of getting a sort of regular sort of pulse of just like what exactly is the latest refresh of the plan, like what is the current priorities, like all that kind of stuff. I think will be good to just have that level of understanding, at least for me personally, moving forward from here. But totally understand there's like a whole ton of work that we got to do, and like now is like the sort of like the starting gun of the whole thing. So yeah, so I'm just looking forward to more of that thinking, and as you and your team kind of develop all that, I'll be very curious to see that sort of output.
Sure, and you know, we as an executive leadership team, we welcome your thought partnership in this endeavor, and I will just say that we do operate in a civil service environment, and you know, you're familiar with the phrase, you got to go slow before you can go fast, and we certainly will endeavor to accomplish everything that we're outlining to do here. But at the same time, I'm also realistic about, you know, the environment that we operate in.
Connie, could I
Can I just say, go ahead.
I just had one. What did you say about 2030? That was when you hoped this was fully implemented, or?
It's a 6-year plan.
Yeah. Okay. So 2030 is the goal at this point.
That's right.
That all of this is in practice.
That's what we're aspiring for.
Okay. Sorry.
Yeah. And I just want to say that given what I've seen here, and even the example you gave about literacy, you know, readiness at kindergarten and then the 3rd grade level, there are going to be certain things in this plan that are low-hanging fruit that you can actually, will have a shorter time frame or a shorter launch. To go like that, using that example of literacy and readiness in kindergarten, that could take, you know, we might not reach that in 6 years, because that is requiring an incredible kind of citywide partnership that we can't do on our own, but at least we're going to make the effort to dive in and really create that infrastructure to allow that to grow. So I think that you need to also distinguish between the things that really take a lot of prep to even start versus those that we can just dive into. And I think when you're looking at these plans, understanding which ones are low-hanging fruit and which ones are going to require just constant effort because of the partnership.
Yeah, I mean, and I think to Pete's point, that's probably why early on the updates should be more frequent until we sort of get a good rhythm and get, okay, you know, these are solidified as, you know, like anything. I mean, the example of the literacy program, I mean, when we talked with the SFUSD about it, it was like, yeah, we're the library. That's what we do. Like, of course you're going to partner with us. So, yeah, but, you know, things move at what they move. That's the way it is. But I think having the stake in the ground and having a directional North Star where the promised land is going, it really does catalyze people to take action. Because there's a mandate, right? Like, if there's a mandate, then people tend to do it. I mean, unfortunately, but that's the way it works.
Further, Commissioner Lopez.
I want to start by thanking the consulting team, the San Francisco Public Library staff, and everyone that collaborated on this. I know we had a lot of feedback, and we went back and forth, and you were very gracious to listen to us, our concerns, our comments, and you know, I know firsthand that this is not easy, and a lot of work went into it. And every time that we ask for more, you deliver. So thank you, and you know, thank you, Commissioner Juan, Pete. You let that was really good to have you there, because you always have like these questions that make me think, wow, this guy is bright. Like, ooh, I didn't think about that. In terms of the measurements and the outcomes, I think that now like all the other commissioners have said, we have the North Star. We have a vision, and it will be just holding us accountable as a commission, and to make sure that all this work also gets delivered. And I think that we will need to take ownership on this as well, and just say, and support, Michael and his team, and the things that, the work that is coming ahead, because it's a lot of work. I also agree, 6 years for many of the things, we probably will just make a dent, but the point is that we're making it. We are starting something, and, we don't know, we don't have the crystal ball, so we don't know what will happen in San Francisco. We know the changes that are happening in terms of kids moving out of the city and all this other factors that we don't have control of. But we're making a dent. We're making the effort. In terms of the mission statement, I'm an educator, and I know learning comes in different ways, and learning encompasses everything. We don't, and to me, having this mission statement is concise, because learning is reading. Learning is writing. Learning is learning how to use a computer. Learning comes in different ways and different shapes, and is different for every person. So I'm happy to say that, we're in a business of learning. So, and that we are inclusive, that we did not leave any communities out. We heard their voices, and the voices are reflected on what we're planning to do in the future. So I just have to say that.
Wonderful, thank you. Okay, Commissioner Ono.
Sorry, I wasn't going to talk today. I was going to be quiet and pretend I was being nice. But I do. No. I wanted to thank everyone. I know everyone said this before, but this has taken a long time. 15 months was well worth it. I hope everyone appreciates what everyone has done to try to get us to this place. I really agree that 6 years is a good ending, because there's so much that happens, in a year. More or less 6 years. So I think just saying 6 years is a good goal. And also, I want to thank Pete, because he's a volunteer. He doesn't get paid to do this, but you really, and then you had the young ideas so that represent the commission for us. So I appreciate it. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, commissioners.
Wait, can I say?
Oh, one more? Commissioner Mall.
I didn't thank you, Pete, but, I remember Pete, I just have to say this, to add a little personal touch here. When Pete was sitting out there, none of you, except Teresa, I'm not even sure, Michael, you remember.
Yeah, I remember.
Do you remember? Pete used to sit out there and ask very good questions. And we all thought, maybe that guy should be on the commission. He should be sitting on this side. So I think it's wonderful that not only are you sitting here and not there, and that we have your expertise and your commitment to the library.
Thank you very much. I
You're
appreciate
welcome.
that.
Okay, I think we're now ready. It almost feels anticlimactic that the way in which we approve the strategic plan and kind of move it forward is by amending the bylaws with a very simple process of updating the mission statement. So would someone like to make a motion to approve the amended bylaws with updated mission statement?
I would like to make a motion to approve the amended bylaws.
And do we have a second?
Second.
So we have a motion from Commissioner Ono with a second from Commissioner Lopez to approve the amended bylaws.
And I'll take the roll call. Commissioners, please say aye or no when I call your name. President Wolf.
Aye.
Vice President Wong.
Aye.
Commissioner Ono.
Aye.
Commissioner Mall.
Aye.
Commissioner Lopez.
Aye.
Commissioner Bolander.
Aye.
The motion passes unanimously. Woohoo! I would just like to add, as we conclude this part of the this item in the agenda, I know we've all thanked everybody, and I particularly want to just thank our consultants. You now get to go on to your next thing, and now it's up to us. And so while we may all want to do a victory lap, the real work really begins. And I want to be sure that the staff knows they have the support of the commission to really advance this in whatever way we need to and you need to, and that this is not going to be an easy shift internally, and it's not going to necessarily be easy for us either to really know how we can be supportive, how we can offer our perspectives. So I think this is, yes, let's all take a victory lap, but then let's roll up our sleeves, because this is when the real work begins. And the consultants are like, okay, oh yeah, we did that a while ago. And it's really up to us. And so I'm excited about who sits on this commission, the perspectives we offer, and I'm particularly grateful for Michael, the leadership team, and everybody who really will roll up their sleeves and make this work. And a special call out to Randy for his really stalwart efforts. Really, you've just been right there, calm, cool, collected all the way through. I also just want to call out Kate Patterson for coming in to help out with the presentation of the strategic plan. Really appreciated that. But now let's really enjoy the moment, because the work really begins tomorrow. So thank you. Now we'll move on to the item number 4, which is a discussion and possible action on middle ground funding resolution. And I turn this back over to City Librarian Michael Lambert.
Thank you, President Wolf. Commissioners, as you know, the library has been partnering with the Exploratorium since last July to host the Middle Ground installation on the Fulton side of the building. This exhibition has been a wonderful enhancement to activate our outdoor space here at the Main and encourage pro-social activity as we foster this shared experience. As we just highlighted in the strategic plan presentation, Middle Ground is actually a great example of our efforts to be a community catalyzer and bringing our community together. One of the linchpins to the success of this installation has been the presence of our partners from Urban Alchemy. And they serve as practitioners to spur the human connections and monitor the environment. They're engaging, wonderful ambassadors for this successful partnership. So this evening, we have a joint presentation from our CFO, Mike Fernandez, and we also have our Assistant Chief of the Main Library, who will be Katrin Reimuller, who will be introducing our partner from the Exploratorium. And we do appreciate your consideration of this request for the Commission to approve a resolution for grant funding to the nonprofit Urban Alchemy. Mike, Katrin, take it away.
Thank you, Michael. Good evening, Commissioners, Dolly, Michael, members of the public. I'm just here to introduce Sean Lonnie, who is all things Middle Ground and Exploratorium for us in our partnership. I think that, yes, the work starts tomorrow on our strategic plan, and that means continuing the fabulous work that Middle Ground is doing out there on the Fulton Street Plaza with the Urban Alchemy staff that engages with the public. I'm going to turn it over to Sean, and he's going to talk to you more about what goes on out there.
I'm going to take a 1 out of 4 guess on this, and I hit it. So Middle Ground, I don't know if all of you have seen it or experienced it directly, excuse me, but it is a blend of placemaking and inquiry-based learning and trauma-informed care. And it's a rare blend in my world, the science world, because we're in the real world. We're not past a paywall. We're not in rarefied air. This is where people come to the library. And it's a special place because of the access people have and the sense of inclusiveness that they have. And what Urban Alchemy brings is what any good teacher needs to bring, which is it makes people feel safe. They make people feel welcome. They're not presenting science, they're engaging people with science. So social science, we talk about stereotypes and biases, the way we see each other, the way we interact, how we resolve our conflicts, how we sometimes jump to conclusions about each other. And this is in the moment. This is responding directly to the need that we're having as a society. So to see it flourish for the second time outside the library has been a very special thing for the Exploratorium. I want to thank you for any additional support that you're able to give us. We're presenting next week at the Public Library Association in Ohio about this project, because when the National Science Foundation gives $4.2 million to create 14, 15 exhibits and create these kinds of partnerships, they want a national model. They want to see what I call publishing and preaching. They want to see people who look at it and go, wow, we want that. There's something about that that works. How could it work here? So we've worked very hard to do the research necessary to prove our impacts, because sometimes you see something and anecdotally everybody loves it, but how do you know it's working? So we have combined the public space creation with a research model that's embedded within that grant. And we find 86% of the people who interact with practitioners on site walk away with increased respect for people who are different from them. 84% of those people walk away with an increased sense of connection to people who aren't like them. Compassion, 80% of people feeling increased compassion for people who are. This, you do not get these numbers inside the museum. Our director of research and evaluation, Dr. Joshua Gutwell, told me after these numbers came out, he says, I don't want to work in the museum anymore. I don't want to work inside the museum anymore. This work is so fundamentally important to expanding our audience model and expanding our impact model. So thank you for hosting us and partnering with us and really being a part of this entire effort. And you can see it's starting to bleed over. There's music out there now. The library feels safe to go into this space and activate it. And that was definitely a stretch goal for us, and it's good to see it happening.
Thank you, Sean. So we are before you today because we really want to support this program that really, as he said, is an example of how activating Fulton Street really supports our mission here at the library. Today we are bringing to you our recommendation to approve a sole source grant pursuant to Chapter 21G, which you can see up here on the slide. This section of the admin code governs how the city can grant to third-party partners, such as Urban Alchemy and other partners. Normally, this would require a competitive process. However, there are instances where we cannot, where it's impractical or infeasible, and when that happens, it's called a sole source. So that's why we come before you today for your approval. So I'll walk you through the analysis that we use to determine whether or not a sole source is warranted. The first question we look at is whether this grant would be required to respond to a public emergency or other exigent circumstance, which this is not in this case. So we move on to the next. We are recommending this sole source really because competitive solicitation in this case is really just infeasible. Competition in this instance is infeasible and impractical because the Middle Ground exhibition is already occupying the physical space between the library and the Asian Arts Museum. The exhibition, as noted earlier, started in July of 2023 and will continue to operate this through, originally was planned to operate the space through February of 2024. This grant would allow continued operation through the end of June 2024. The project was developed as a partnership between the Exploratorium and Urban Alchemy, and a new competitive process is infeasible and impractical given the limited duration of the extension and Urban Alchemy's experience and involvement in providing these services. Further, a new competitive process for the services Urban Alchemy is already providing would disrupt the ongoing Middle Ground exhibit and disrupt the activation of Fulton Street. The next question we ask is, why is Urban Alchemy the only entity that can fulfill this public purpose? The Middle Ground exhibition at Fulton and Larkin Streets offer an important public purpose of supporting the interaction of all ages and social statuses, as well as the library's commitment to furthering the connection of all residents and visitors of San Francisco. This installation was developed jointly by the Exploratorium and Urban Alchemy, making Urban Alchemy's participation integral to this installation. And additionally, this will be an enhanced experience for library patrons by offering them a free and safe opportunity to interact with residents and visitors of all ages and backgrounds. And then last, how do we verify that this is the only entity that can fulfill this public purpose? It is significant to note that, as you heard earlier, that the Middle Ground exhibition was established and funded by a grant from the National Science Foundation. The library has confirmed with the Exploratorium that due to the existing partnership, Urban Alchemy is really the only entity that can act as stewards and docents for the Middle Ground exhibition. And as the installation is already activating the space, the library only intends to help support this already existing service using our funding. So in summary, bringing in a new partner for just a couple of months really doesn't make any operational sense. This grant before you, the resolution before you to approve the grant would be for $111,831. That supports roughly 2.6 full-time equivalents at Urban Alchemy. And you may have noticed that this grant is indeed retroactive, so I did want to address that for you. We did start to engage with our partners, back in the fall. It took actually quite a bit of work to get to this point. We explored a lot of options. As some of you may be aware, we do have an existing agreement with Urban Alchemy, and so we looked at exploring that as a route or various contractual options. In the end, it was determined that really having a standalone grant was really the only way to go. We were able to fully resolve all of our issues and have a grant agreement that all parties could agree to in February, so prior to March 1st, but wasn't in time to make an earlier meeting for this body. And this being our second sole source grant, we now have a lot more knowledge and experience, and we have a lot better understanding of what it's going to take, so that this will be the last retroactive sole source grant that you see before you, hopefully. That's the plan. And so we're here for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that robust presentation and incredible statistics. Before we bring this to discussion and possible action to the commission, we will now open this up for public comment for members of the public here in Corrett Auditorium. Public comment is now open.
Peter Warfield, Executive Director, Library Users Association, Library Users 2004 at yahoo.com, and P.O. Box 170544, San Francisco, California, 94117-0544. And I say those things because I think it's important, and I'd like to see them in the minutes, and I'd like to see them correctly in the minutes. You may not think it's necessary or important, or you may want to not put it in because you don't like it, but it's what I'm saying, and I consider it important. With respect to this project, I don't have any objections. I think it's nice to have something interesting outside the library that can attract some attention and so on. I have to say that initially when I saw those nice chairs way up high, I thought, wow, how can I get to sit down on those? And unfortunately, there wasn't any cherry picker or anything else that enabled me to sit on it, and I wasn't really clear what those were about. I also thought that by and large, that presentation was supposed to be sort of self-guiding and self-managing. So I don't understand why. First of all, I don't know that there was a previous allotment of money that you have approved for this purpose. This is an extension. So I'm curious if that happened publicly here. And number two, I'm not sure that I understand that 4 months with 2.6 people out there, we're talking about approximately $30,000 a month for less than 3 people. So how does that work out? Are they getting handsome salaries or what's happening there? Unfortunately, I don't know that I'm going to get any answers or any clarity. That doesn't seem to be key here at the Library Commission. In the previous presentation, I forgot to mention that Gensler is an architecture firm, and that buried in tiny type, way at the end of the strategic plan, is talk about planning to build. And I think that's the double secret intention of the strategic plan. That is what's really wanted. It's very political. The library has been for decades now, almost nonstop, providing real estate and tech advocacy and income. So I don't know that we're going to find out about this either. I understand that these are folks that are worthy and useful. So as I said, I don't oppose this, but I do think the money aspect is a question.
Any further public comment here in Correct Auditorium? Seeing there's no further public comment is now closed. Mike, I had one quick question for you before I turn this over to my fellow commissioners. On this document, the resolution, it begins with to award a sole source grant of $113,831, but then in your document and below it says $111,831. Is that a typo? Or is there, I'm not seeing the,
Yeah, let me go back to the grant agreement. I have a copy of it back there, and I'll come back and clarify.
yeah, because I just want to be sure
Yeah, let me
that the
clarify that for you.
resolution we are going to review, approve is actually accurate, or if we need to make an amendment in our motion.
Okay, let me check on that 1 second.
Okay, thank you. So we'll just,
Yes, it's 111.
okay. So when we make this motion, we need to make a
Amend.
clarification that it is for 111,000 and make the change in the resolution.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I was just doing my homework, making sure I didn't. Okay, so thank you for that. Do we, Commissioner, Vice President Huang?
Could you give us, so I'm seeing the sort of like the lens of like from the library budget's point of view for March through end of June. Do we have enough context in the room to share sort of from the program's point of view, finance-wise, is this like a continuation at the same rate as the program has been running so far? What is the, it sounds like the full sort of cost has come from the NSF grant before. Like, could you just share that sort of view from the program's perspective, sort of any sort of, are there any changes? Just sort of like tie that up for us so we know kind of, relatively speaking, how it all equates.
Base the budget numbers on the same rate and arrangement we have with the Exploratorium on our schedule. So the way this was determined was looking to extend the time spent, how much money it costs us per month. We went to the library and said, okay, this is about where we're looking at. And then the numbers went out and came back, and they worked it out directly with Urban Alchemy. But the Exploratorium was very much in the conversation around what are the cost benefits here, like how many people do you actually need to run this thing, and what does that mean operationally? And by the way, because we're getting this 4-month extension, I was able to go back, if we get the 4-month extension, I was able to go back to the National Science Foundation program officer and extend the show another 6 months. So what you're providing is actually a bridge, and we've asked the National Science Foundation to let the show remain here rather than going to a third site location. So
Gotcha. So that means we're sort of funding this 4-month bridge period, and then after that there'll be yet another 6 months on top.
You got it.
Funded through the NSF.
That's right.
And that is this original grant. Is that a separate one?
That's just the second of 2 grants. So this is actually 2
grants.
back-to-back National Science Foundation grant.
Gotcha.
This has been no cost to the library to this point.
Yeah.
So
which
we've
is
covered-
why we haven't seen like this sort of proposal so
Exactly.
far and all that kind of stuff. The money hasn't come from us. It's just useful to kind of know kind of the funding. One kind of line that you had said there was sort of like this process of like going out to what I assume you're referring to Urban Alchemy and then having the rates come back. Did those rates end up staying the same for this 4-month period as the period before?
Yeah, that's correct.
Gotcha. Okay.
Well, I have to say, it's very exciting to think about this going further because it does completely change the space and feeling around the library. It just transforms it in such an amazing way. So just want to say that's really great news to hear that there's that possibility after we're funding what's already being done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for answering my questions.
Thank you. Further comments, questions? Then I'm going to, let's make sure I word this properly. I would like to someone to make a motion to approve the middle ground funding resolution with the amount with a sole source grant of $111,831 to Urban Alchemy.
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
So we have a motion from Commissioner Huang and a second from Commissioner Ono to approve the resolution as amended.
I'll take the roll call. Commissioners, please say aye or no when I call your name. President Wolf?
Aye.
Vice President Wong?
Aye.
Commissioner Ono?
Aye.
Commissioner Mall?
Aye.
Commissioner Lopez?
Aye.
Commissioner Bolander?
Aye.
The motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much. This is such an exciting project. It's a great partnership. Thank you for presenting on behalf of the Exploratorium. Please extend our gratitude to the leadership and your colleagues for their contributions and really thinking through how a partnership like this can really change how people interact and connect with each other. This is now part of our strategic plan, isn't that one of our things? And
Already done.
already done. But just thank you very, very much for this incredible kind of, and I love the idea that we are part of something that could be part of a national model. So thank you for that opportunity.
Thank you.
Okay, we now turn to item number 5, discussion on the city librarian's report. So our city librarian, Michael Lambert, take it away.
Thank you, President Wolf. We have a couple of reports this evening for the City Librarian's Report. Kate Patterson, our Director of Communications, and Michelle Jeffers, our Chief of Community Programs and Partnerships. They're going to tag team on a report highlighting the 5th Night of Ideas, and then Michelle is also going to be sharing information about an upcoming event featuring New York Times bestselling author Matthew Desmond. He'll be here in San Francisco discussing his latest book, Poverty by America. So Kate and Michelle, take it away.
Good evening, Commissioners. It is our pleasure to recap the best night that San Francisco has seen in a very long time, the 5th Annual Night of Ideas. This is the the third time, excuse me, that the main library hosted, right? Sorry. God, it's COVID, the COVID year, sorry. So the Night of Ideas is an initiative of the French government, and it started a number of years ago, and now it's ballooned to more than 100 cities around the globe. There were 20 cities in the United States that participated this year, and here in San Francisco, the program is administered by the Villa Albertine, which is their artisan residency program that's run out of the French consulate. And our other wonderful partners in the Night of Ideas this year were KQED and Circuit Network. And Circuit Network was our curating partner. We gave $40,000 to the Arts Commission to administer a grant to an arts nonprofit who could help us program the various artists and performances that you saw throughout the night. And they did a wonderful job again. Every year, the French come up with a theme, and this year's theme was fault lines. And every year, we take that theme and we just do whatever we want with that theme, and we add our own spirit of San Francisco to that theme. Sorry, Michelle. And but because this is earthquake country, we thought of fault lines as like shaking things up. And so the first thing we did to sort of shake things up is we added a new family program component to the Night of Ideas, which we called the Afternoon of Ideas, and that ran from 4 to 6 p.m. and drew lots of families, many of whom had never been to the library before, and they enjoyed a dance class at the San Francisco Ballet, henna tattoos, I think my daughter still has hers on her hand, and a special workshop with award-winning author Maggie Takuta Hall and our summer stride artist Cindy Santa Maria, and a cookie demonstration. And we want to thank Ileana Palou, Jen Wu, Megan Anderson, Jason Hill, and the entire MCC staff for really helping us pull the first ever Afternoon of Ideas off. Next slide. So each year, the Night of Ideas tackles very important and the pressing issues of our day. But this year, we really wanted to infuse the evening with joy. Specifically, we really wanted to celebrate San Francisco, which we feel is so maligned in the press. And here we have All the Way Hip Hop doing a performance in the atrium. And one of the ways that we celebrated the city is with a partnership with the San Francisco Municipal Transportation Agency, which provided some financial support for us to have kind of a little Muni celebration. And one of the ways that that manifested that evening was with this incredible art bust called Altered SF, which we brought here through a partnership with Muni Raise Me, which is a cohort of artists and curators who put on a show that is about artists who were born and raised in San Francisco and have really remained here despite all the odds and challenges that the city has thrown at them. And so we brought their bus, and I hope some of you had a chance to go see it. It was spectacular. And you put it on Fulton Street along with a bookmobile and food trucks to really activate that space. And in addition, we had Jeffrey Tumlin, the director of the SFMTA, on a panel, and we had authors of Muni is My Ride do a really fun interactive trivia with prizes panel as well. So lots of Muni love and civic pride. By far, one of the most popular programs of the evening, this should be no surprise, is the live taping of KQED's Forum. We had lines wrapping around the lower level. We can go to the next slide. And here we have Alexis Madrigal up here on this very stage. And I want to thank the staff for really managing the crowd outside and the expectations, but it all went very smooth and people were really thrilled. And those tapings aired last Thursday, I believe, but I think you can still find them on their website. We also had internationally renowned sound artist Bill Fontana take over the mix and do an immersive sound installation and an artist talk. So there's just a couple of the highlights, and I'm going to turn it over to Michelle to share more. And I can do this part.
Okay.
I'm bad at
And look how, this is really high for me. Look how smooth this transition is. And we had pop-up performances, as we mentioned. Circuit Network really helped us with that, as well as Friends of the Library, bringing in great performers that just strolled throughout the building so everybody could enjoy them. Next slide. And we had so many panel discussions that took place on the hour. We ended up having many more panel discussions this year than we have in the past, and we kept them shorter and moved them along each hour. This is one of our reading rooms, and it's a panel about the legacy of Bonnie Ora Shirk. And then this, we filled every nook and cranny, like I said, in the library with inspiring speakers, but we also did things like, for the first time, stand-up comedy. And this is Julissa Robinson, a stand-up comic in San Francisco, doing a stand-up set. Next slide. And obviously, every room ended up being standing room only. We really packed the place in, and I thought, that's the beauty of this event, is that people come and crane through everything. Next slide. In fact, this is one of my favorite parts, is seeing people peek through the bookshelves to get a glimpse of a speaker, but also people that just were using the library that night. I just love that people come in and pick up books and check out books and get library cards and all those things. People just love being in the library, too. In fact, thanks to a KQED survey, we found that the attendees said that more than 80% gave high marks to the chosen venue for this event. So I thought that was amazing. And then the fourth floor was a small business marketplace again, and it was bustling. Last year, librarian Christy Harless came up with this idea, and she's since moved to another position, so she passed the baton to Julianne Randolph from the fourth floor, who did a great job getting the word out and recruiting small businesses. We had more than 8 small businesses, and people loved the chance to support local entrepreneurs right here in the library. And of course, we were honored to have the library host a keynote with the city, in fact, the world's first drag laureate, Darcy Drollinger. She offered a beautiful message of inclusion and acceptance in San Francisco. She really brought home the themes that also are carried through in our strategic plan about infusing the spirit of San Francisco in what we do. This is what makes our city so magical. And cabaret performer Alada Boot brought down the house in the Steve Silver Beach Blanket Babylon Music Center. For the past 2 iterations, we've been able to honor Steve's legacy in this room with past Beach Blanket Babylon performers singing in the room. And of course, there was a dance party thanks to the Friends. People got down to DJ Umami and DJ Beatrix in the periodical room. Friends puts on a great Friends Lounge on the upper floors of the library that people just really enjoy. Next slide. And our multicolored city really turned out for the headline entertainment. Next slide. Which was, of course, the residents. They brought down the house with their otherworldly art rock band and costumes, and you can see, even though I was really nervous about filling the atrium, it all went okay. The atrium was filled for this performance at 11 o'clock at night. Next slide. And thanks to our collections and technical services, they provided thousands of these spark boxes to give away over the course of the night. I love this image because the idea of sparking happiness and joy is what we're all about. The night is also really a compliment to the work of the strategic plan, as I mentioned. Thanks to the KQED survey of attendees, we found out that 73% felt more informed, 51% said this event affected them emotionally, and a whopping 79% said they felt more connected to their community from this event. We had almost 6,800 youth, families, and adults in attendance that night, far exceeding our past attendance of the previous 3 years that this was the previous 3 years we had it here. It really exemplifies the best of San Francisco and our library, and proving our work as cultural amplifiers and community catalyzers, I will say. And I want to thank all of you, the amazing library staff, the amazing library leaders. Our staff had to be thoughtful navigators all night long as they tried to help people navigate this building. Anyway, it was a truly remarkable event, and I'm really happy about it. And I say this, I look forward to the next time we do it, whenever that may be. Hedging my bets. And that concludes that presentation. And I'm also here because I'm thrilled to talk to you about our bi-monthly On the Same Page book club, which for March features Poverty by America by the Pulitzer Prize-winning author and academic Matthew Desmond. This book was recently read and championed by our Board of Supervisors, and the message it conveys is so important for our society. The New Yorker describes it as urgent and accessible. Its moral force is a gut punch. And I know this is a bit of a tone change, but despite us living in the richest country on earth, the U.S. has more poverty than any other advanced democracy. Why does this land of plenty allow 1 in every 8 children to go without basic necessities, permit scores of its citizens to live and die on the streets, and authorize corporations to pay poverty wages to its hourly workers? It's hard to hear, but our system is set up to subsidize the wealthy over the alleviation of poverty. And change only starts by being aware, which is why we picked this book. Next slide, thanks. Again, that's why we thought it was so important to highlight this book. We were very lucky that thanks to the Friends of the Library and an anonymous donor, we were able to subsidize an author event with Matthew Desmond. It's next week at the Sidney Goldstein Theater in partnership with City Arts and Lectures. And to eliminate all barriers to access for this event, we were able to get a free code so everybody can attend for free. I understand that thanks to our marketing and outreach efforts through the library, we have basically filled the Sidney Goldstein Theater, which seats about 1,300 people, so I'm really proud of that. Matthew will be in conversation with Bernice Jung, who is the managing editor of Berkeley Journalism School's Investigative Reporting Division, and she's also the author of In a Day's Work, The Fight to End Sexual Violence Against America's Most Vulnerable Workers. So I really hope those of you who can make it, you'll really enjoy this talk. I know Matthew will highlight that despite this pretty bleak message, there are things we can do to end poverty. I want to call them out here too, about using our influence and talking about this issue often and frequently. And though I pulled this Fighting Poverty in California, they made these sheets for every state in the nation, and California does work harder than many states for living and fair wages, but we have a lot of room to grow in terms of affordability here in California. The book is really heavily researched, but it is a call to action. We can abolish poverty, both in our state and in the United States. Next slide. And if you want to learn more, we've created a really robust book list to continue reading about the issue and continue thinking about what we can do to end poverty. And that concludes my presentation.
Thank you so much, Michelle. And this city librarian's report exemplifies so many things. Certainly, reading and books are still part and parcel of what we do and core to our mission. I think this work, this author in particular, is an excellent demonstration of how we're trying to stimulate a dialogue in our community to realize our vision of a more democratic, more equitable, and vibrant San Francisco. And thank you to the Friends and Foundation of the San Francisco Public Library. You really do enhance the level of service that we're able to provide by subsidizing, bringing in authors of this stature. Night of Ideas, the best ever, 6,769 people to be exact. Nearly 1,000 more than our previous record. And thank you, library commissioners, for showing up and participating in that. I know I saw some of you in the session with Eric Klinenberg, another New York Times bestselling author, fabulous salon. So thank you so much for all your support, and that concludes the City Librarian's report.
Thank you very much, City Librarian Michael Lambert, and a special thanks to Michelle and to Kate. I'm sure we'll have more to say. But we'll first open this up to public comment on this agenda item, the City Librarian's report. Public comment is now open here in Corrett Auditorium.
Good evening, Peter Warfield, Executive Director, Library Users Association, Library Users 2004 at yahoo.com, and P.O. Box 170544, San Francisco, California, 94117-0544. Did it in 15 seconds. First of all, thank you for the presentation and for having it. There are some very serious issues and very serious problems with these programs, in particular Night of Ideas. In the first place, this is the first time you closed the library on Saturday so that nobody could do normal library business of any kind. And there was no notice within the main library until possibly a day or two before. There was no notice on the phones. I called up to find out what the hours were, whether there would be any service on Saturday. And right into Saturday, there was no information. They just gave the usual hours. You really trashed the public that uses the library as a library. Second, the publicity for this thing. If you go to a branch, this is the biggest blowout thing of the year. You go into branches or the main library, there was no indication whatsoever of what was going on. No posters, no flyers, no handouts, no nothing. When you did find out, if you were on a computer, the one thing you could see is at the library, but you didn't know it was a virtual program until possibly March, when it was like 2 days away. You had to go online to register. You had to provide KQED with your name, first name, last name, address, possibly phone number. And my favorite question was, before we go on, they wanted to know your gender and your income. No. And at first I said, this is outrageous. Subsequently, I looked, and the little tiny down caret gave me a choice of what genders I could choose, including, if I don't want to say what, and the same with income, and the same with age. There were privacy issues. A very few signs saying, we're going to make pictures of you and use them for our public relations, and your being here agrees to it. I think that's very wrong. So all of that, I think, is extremely problematic, the way that there was limited access that could very much turn people off. I've already gotten notices from them, and apparently I'm on the mailing list. I didn't ask for that. The Poverty by America, very interesting program. I'm not sure what the publicity for that was. Key thing that I don't see in the presentation is that it is benefiting and profiting the wealthier people, how the poor are treated and left out.
Thank you. Any further public comment on this agenda item, the City Librarian's report? Seeing there's no further comment, I will now open this up for discussion of my fellow commissioners, but I just would like to begin by, again, thanking Michelle and Kate for the presentation, but extending the gratitude to the entire team here at San Francisco Public Library. I know Commissioner Lopez, Commissioner Mall, and I were all there in full force, and it was really extraordinary. You knocked it out of the park, just knocked it out of the park. And everything was so crowded, I got a little nervous at times, like, I think if the fire marshal comes, we might get in trouble. But not really, but it was just like, wow. So I just want to say thank you to the entire staff, because it took a village. It took everybody participating at every level, and it was really wonderful to see the staff so happy, engaged, and just joyful with everybody here using the library. And it was just it was magical. So, anyone want to make a comment? Commissioner Lopez?
Echoing the sentiment, I attended last year, and this year was super. I mean, it was like great. What I'm really impressed is the quality of workshops. I attended one on artificial intelligence, and I just feel like I'm hungry for more. It was standing room only, but it was worth standing for. What I really appreciate about Night of Ideas, besides all the work that goes on, from the custodian service, I mean, it was amazing, because with all the number of people, the library looked fine. It was nice and clean, and everyone was welcoming. So thank you to all the staff, Michelle and Kate. I mean, I don't know if you count your steps, but I'm pretty sure you have over, yeah. I have 20,000. Okay, I don't, yeah. Because it was, every single inch of this library was used, and every single inch was full with energy and excitement. So thank you, and thank you to everyone who worked, because many of you worked the next day or the following week. So in terms of the Poverty of America, I can't wait. I finished a book, and I can't wait to attend. Thank you so much. I think is really, like a call for action. And it's not that we didn't know some of the facts, but it's just that it really hits home. So thank you. I'm looking forward to the event. Thank you to the friends. We're like really spoiled here. Thank you. Free entertainment, free music, free knowledge, sharing, everything. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Commissioner Mall.
I just want to say, based on other Nights of Ideas, I thought this was just far and away the best. And in other years, I sort of, frankly, struggled with, like, where do I put myself? Nothing really grabbed me the way so many of the programs did this year. And unfortunately, they were, programmed against each other, but that's the beauty of the night. And I didn't, but I could have stayed hours and hours and hours, because there was so many great programs. And I didn't have to stand. I did find chairs. So I appreciated being comfortable while I was listening. So bravo to all of you.
Any further? So I think we'll just conclude this, but just again, I think this program on having Matthew Desmond come is really so important. It's sort of bookends. You've presented bookends of the best of San Francisco, of people coming together to celebrate, and now really a call to action to bring people in San Francisco to really make a difference. And so I think that this report really is about the best that is here and the best to come, and what we can do to really ensure the city is a place for everybody with equal access. And I think the strategic plan just fits right into everything. And Michelle, you were kind of perfect in integrating it into your comments, just flawlessly. So thank you again to the staff. Thank you to the Friends for your support. And we will move on now to item number 6, which means we're at the end of our meeting. And it is adjournment, and we will have action on this, but we will first open up to public comment before we discuss and vote on this. Public comment is now open in Corrett Auditorium.
Is it on?
Yes.
Can we start over, please? Madam Chair, thank you. Peter Warfield, Executive Director, Library Users Association, Library Users 2004 at yahoo.com. And P.O. Box 170544, San Francisco, California, 94117-0544. I've said it before and I'll say it again. I think you should certainly have an item on your agenda at the end where you get to say what you'd like to see on future agenda items. One of the members here, Commissioner Lopez, said she hungered for more about AI. I certainly did too, but I particularly hungered for more about the downsides. There were 4 or 5 programs, all of them presented by people working professionally within AI and getting money for selling AI, except for one, who I think gave an excellent presentation at the Mina Kim Forum program, which I went to, and there was another one that I went to as well. But all of them were people who were not independent, and that's something I think you should talk about in terms of the programming that you would like to see more of, and that certainly I would like to see more of. I can't see Commissioner.
I was tying my shoe.
I think the programming is extremely important, and as you said as well, there were a lot of programs all at once. So there were 3, possibly 4 programs on AI all in the same hour, which I didn't understand for those who want to see more why they were jammed into a single hour of 7 o'clock. There was also something in the getting of tickets, which said you weren't supposed to come to the family program unless you were accompanied by a child. There's none of that on the program that was presented, and I don't know if anybody was checking, but I thought that was pretty inappropriate also, that a family program, a person without a child can't know what they're telling parents and kids about AI, which is, according to the program, empowering choices and so on and so forth. There certainly wasn't any mention in the programs I went to about the head of ChatGPT going to Washington and saying this could cause the end of democracy and the end of humans. And that's something that, and he was begging for regulation. And the Surgeon General has, well, so I think there's a great deal more to talk about with AI, but I think it was very one-sided at this particular program. Thank you.
Any further public comment on the adjournment? Seeing there's no further public comment is now closed. Would someone like to make a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
I second.
So we have a motion from Commissioner Huang and a second from Commissioner Mall to adjourn the meeting.
I'll take the roll call. Commissioners, please say aye or no when I call your name. President Wolf?
Aye.
Vice President Wong?
Aye.
Commissioner Ono?
Aye.
Commissioner Mall?
Aye.
Commissioner Lopez?
Aye.
Commissioner Bolander?
Aye.
The motion passes unanimously. The meeting is adjourned. We will see you many times here at the library and the branches and in April at our next meeting. Thank you.